The Catan Shard was destroyed. The family of calamity, threatening the Corona's expanse should the ancient god ever be unshackled, had been... Yeah, this one is so weird. The Catan Shard was destroyed. So we destroyed it. This creature here that we imprisoned. It doesn't make sense. The shadow of calamity threatened the Corona's expanse should the ancient god ever be unshackled, had been lifted. At least for a time. Doesn't make any sense. Gathering its bleeding worlds together again, the rogue trader dared to build something more noble and civilized in the expanse. A haven for those drifting and unprotected in the strict hierarchy of the Imperium. It would be an unbound frontier, where freedom and compassion were not wholly extinct. Yet cruelty, intolerance and corruption grew like festering sores throughout the sector. Only the rogue trader's constant oversight could keep the pestilence at bay. The Imperium could not forgive such insolent deviations from the order prescribed by Holy Terra. The von Valancius dynasty was accused of the seditious formation of their own empire. An invasion fleet gathered in the Calixis sector, and the lifespan of the young utopia was short as its creators. So we didn't stay in power for very long, it seems. The ideals that Svinto von Valancius was committed to were alien to the Imperium but close to the hearts of many in the Expanse. Anyone who could not resolve a dispute or who was denied justice rushed to the palace of the rogue trader in search of mercy. Rumors and stories of his humanitarian rule formed the foundation of the Valencian school of philosophy. The sect united commoners and aristocrats in the belief that for the Imperium to flourish, it should stop seeing its subjects as mere tools. This dangerous heresy was denounced in many systems, but persecution only hardened and multiplied its followers. Having lost its leader and lacking a worthy successor, the Shorda dynasty began to weaken. The grim legacy of the abominable Aspies revealed itself, and the Protectorate fell into chaos. Grasping claimants tore the defenseless Demensne apart. After openly embracing the patronage of the Skull God, Caligos Winterscale swept over the expanse like a fiery tornado, bombing peaceful planets and destroying void ships. His dynasty's realm became a nest of piracy and heresy that required immediate purging. Thanks to the patronage of the von Valancius dynasty, the cult of the Saint Drusus was successful in spreading its influence across the expanse, overshadowed the cults that other saints lost their followers and faced a harsh choice: slip into obscurity or swear allegiance to the ideals of Drusus, the warrior. After the death of Reverend Hieronymus Doloroso, a man called Chaplain took over leadership over the Drusian mission. He hid his name, but his crimes or his piratical past. So he hid his name but not his crime or his past. With the resolve of an experienced voidfarer, he steered the cult and even led his fellow believers on military expeditions against brigands, enforcing order and converting depraved captives to the faith. In the following years, the Cognizance fleet slowly and deliberately left the explored systems of the Expanse for the furthest remote regions. Observation station and claimed worlds were abandoned, and even Eurofreights 2 became derelict. Statistical deviation warned the fleet's conclave of the grim events awaiting the expanse, and they decided to deliver their fellows from the coming storm. Yet they did not share the truth with the lay people. Many members of the conclave perished during the tragic events that accompanied the return of the Messiah of discontinuing the cycle. The hierarchical chain raised Magos Dominus Opticon 22 to the highest circle of leadership. He remained there for more than a century until he was deposed and disposed of, charged with attempting to revive the anathemized schism. The crisis in the Expanse dealt a serious blow to the business interest of the Fellowship of the Void. Having no powerful allies, they retreated into the darkness of frontier systems. The hard life they faced there forced them into a new tribe. Furious, wild, and willing to do anything for survival, they swore to return and retake what had once been theirs. The first command of Ryza, issued after her miraculous rescue on Footfall, was the complete extermination of all worshippers of the Dark Gods among the Fellowship of the Void. The old pirate wanted to find another way for her people to survive. The former renegades hoped to live by the law, working as mercenaries or traders. When it seemed they were finally on the path to a peaceful life, the Imperium Navy conducted a flash raid and destroyed all their ships. Those who survived the bloodbath were publicly hanged. The Casbalican mission thrived on the riches it acquired in its deals with the rogue trader. The organization expanded to new markets, built up a mercenary army and fleet, and was ready to defend the legitimacy of its business from the authorities. Those foolish enough to deny it, that right, died quick, brutal, and unexplained deaths. Vladaean Tokara, as Liege of Footfall, survived 14 assassination attempts and thwarted no less than 2,000 schemers before a shot finally took his life. The esteemed League's funeral was held in great secrecy, with only his closest entourage being permitted to view his corpse, which spawned some peculiar rumors. The Imperial Navy was wary of the rise of the von Valancius. They saw themselves as dogs guarding the flock of the Emperor's subjects, and there was a new master of the pack. Therefore, the dynasty was watched with utmost diligence, and the admirals feared that one day they would have to go to war against a rogue trader. Chartist Captain Austrius Thorfast founded the Thorfast and Companions Merchant Company. Excelling in trade and acquiring a substantial escort fleet, after 3 decades he traveled to the Moa to return to the Imperium in hopes of obtaining the fabled warrant of trade. It is not known how this venture ended. When the rogue traders' apostasy became apparent, the Imperial Navy fulfilled its duty and fought the von Valancius dynasty. The Battle of Dragones ended in resounding defeat, and the surviving ship's fleet fled to distant systems. Disheartened but not broken, the captains vowed to rebuild their force and planned raids into the apostate territory. Okay, I didn't do any heretic acts at all, so I don't know how I got this ill-favored by the Imperium. Dragonus grew and prospered until it became the capital of the Corona's expanse. The planet was like a giant magnet whose pull held together the worlds of the expanse, absorbing the treasures and vices of the sector. Dragonus became the bastion of order in the expanse. From here, punitive expeditions were dispatched and tainted worlds, and entire spires were occupied by officials and bureaucrats of the Imperium. On many planets, the expression of a man from Dragonus soon came to mean a fearsome inspector with the power to impose punishment. Kiava Gamma washed off the stain of its former defilement, but not the dark memory of it. The sacred halls were never silent, and production rate became the supreme law. The glory of the Imperium was forged in the blood and sweat of its toilers, and the millstones of the manufacturing grounds and the workers down by the thousand. Even in death, the souls of its servants dared not step away from their machines. The enthroned Null Caliph drew millions of pilgrims and granted the planet hallowed status. Its sacred calculation continued for centuries, and the foremost sages of the Adeptus Mechanicus traveled to the world so they could attempt to divine its meaning. Janus was conquered, the Xenos spirits was exorcised, and the wilderness was subdued. The fields grew until they covered the entire planet, and billions of tons of provisions were harvested there. Janus has become the breadbasket of the expand, and to threaten it would be to condemn millions to starvation. The nobility of the expanse appreciated the idyllic conditions of the pearl-like paradise world. White castles rose above the augury complexes and their mud, and the shining knights of Janus gifted the sector with many a hero who covered themselves in glory. Despite grim expectations, damn that, the coexisting of humans and the Aldari did not lead to enmity. Janus had faced many trials, and the struggle against them brought the two peoples together. They did not develop an affection for one another, but they learned to speak with no weapons in their hands. More than one dangerous xenophile schism was born on Janus. Xenophile. So they interbred. The mines of Veabos 6 grew deeper and deeper, and soon the planet became the darkest and most frightening colony of the expanse. The final stop for the exiled and the damned, the brutal, hardened inhabitants of the Death World feared neither humans nor xeno horrors, knew no mercy, and were known as the most fearsome fighters in the sector, who had traded their lives for the right to leave the eternal darkness of the mines. The harsh Veabos 6 became a land of trials, capable of testing one's righteousness. The repentant and the zealous alike flocked there to be purified and toughened by its poisonous atmosphere. In the ominous halls of the Fortress of Penance, the Grim Guard was established, an order of crusaders who guarded the purity of the expanse, renowned for their tenacity and feared for their unyielding fanaticism. No longer secluded and forlorn, Foulstone turned into the spiritual center of the expanse. Clad in gold and power, rulers went there to be anointed for greatness. Criminals for penance and the righteous for encouragement. And there was no end to them in sight. Covered into a comet shine, Foulstone's moon spread the word of Saint Cognatius throughout the expanse. Protecting worlds from attacks from the enemies of humanity, its servants asked for neither money nor power, but only the relics left by their blessed patron. The wise handed them over with reverence, while the haughty learned how heavy the hammer of Foulstone was. The fate of the pure-voiced prophet, guardian of the hallowed crucible, was a sad one. After visiting 7 worlds and bestowing the blessing of transformation upon them, he perished at the hands of bloodthirsty Drukhari pirates along with his retinue and the priceless relic. He promised he would succeed, he failed us. With the fall of their unholy patron, the Edges of Daybreak, the cult of the Final Dawn, perished as well. Every cell of the cult was hunted down and eliminated. Rumors that some worshippers of the ruinous powers had managed to get away, hiding in the writings of their warp-banished lord under their robes, were baseless. Hiding the writings of their warp-banished lord under their robes were baseless. Okay. Left without a mission or a leader, the word-bearers retreated into the depths of the Immaterium. Their last act of vengeance was a bloodthirsty assault on Footfall. The populace of several asteroids was exterminated or enslaved, and the statue of the God Emperor was badly damaged. After recovering from Shorda's regime, Footfall reclaimed its status as the trading hub of the Expanse. Having learned a bitter lesson, Vladeim Tokara created the Footfall's Partisans Militia, a well-equipped mercenary army that answered only to him. A modicum of order returned to the station. The changes of the von Valancius dynasty brought to Footfall endured on the station long after. Poorhouses opened by the order of the rogue traders saved many hungry and homeless from death. Unfortunately, this disrupted the station's delicate ecosystem, no longer freezing to death in empty compartments or tormented by epidemics. Those who lived in poverty on Footfall began to choke the station, leading to sharp rise in crime. Organ traders, illegal augmentic specialists, and savage gangs of the Anvers proliferated. Left without a sun, the Reichad system ceased to exist. Its now frigid planets spun away into the darkness, no longer held by the gravitational pull of their star. A century later, a fragment of Reichad Mornoris entered the Ferabundus system and was snared by void miners. A piece of its rock was delivered to Footfall with reverence and used in the restoration of the God Emperor statue as a final memorial to the world devoured by corruption. Rumors of the rotting remains of the Eldari craft world spread around the Expanse. Explorators, privateers, Casbaligan agents, and anyone hungry for easy money and all rushed to the frontier system to vie for a piece of the prize. Some were swallowed by the warp, while others perished in skirmishes with their rivals. The most skilled and fortunate returned empty-handed after decades of searching. The colossal ship was as big as an imperial world, simply vanished, as if it had never existed. But the legend of the forbidden treasure lived on and continued to bring daring souls to ruin. Half a century later, the expanse trembled to the echo of Eldari war songs. Myriad warbands appeared out of nowhere, leaving a trail of bodies in their wake before disappearing into webway gates. Masterfully hidden from the eye of the monkey, the children of Azurian had come to avenge the death of the craft world Krudarak. Their woeful retribution lasted many decades, until both races were war-worn and out of blood to spill. So, we were friendly with each other, and we were at war at the same time. Janus was among the worlds hit by the savage retribution of the Xenos. Before the Great Slaughter could make the planet's irrigation channels run red with blood, the Farseer Muaran merged from the forest to address the Avengers. Having convinced his kin to stay their hand, he and his people departed Janus. But what about the Xenophiles? Somewhere on the underside of reality lay Komora, woven from manifold other dimensions and illuminated as always with the light of stolen suns. Its streets ever filled with screams and agony, any misfortune experienced by the Dark City became another scar on its appalling face. Lost among thousands of other vile blemishes, as long as pain pulsed in its blood-soaked spires, the insatiable and unshakable Komora continued its flight through the webway along with its unchanging ruler, the leader of the Cabal of the Black Heart and the most dangerous of all Drukhari, Asdrubal Vect. After the Rogue Trader's visit, dimensional rifts open around the spire of the Reaving Tempest, flooding the streets of Komora with demons. This incursion terrified Komora. The Cabal of the Black Heart managed to stop it. But some Archons saw the event as a sign of their leader's weakness. Others interpreted it as a grim omen for the entirety of the Dark City. The fall of the Cabal of the Reaving Tempest united Komora for a brief and bloody moment. The elites of the Dark City set the squabbles aside and found a new game in tearing apart the domain of Archon Iremeris. The fate of the Reaving Tempest reminded the other Cabals that nothing lasts forever in the Dark City, save the city itself. The dimensional gate leading to the Necron Tomb worlds was sealed, and not a soul knew what transpired on the other side. But now and then rumors came from the fringes of systems settled by humanity, rumors of sickle-shaped ships that appeared and disappeared suddenly, without showing any sign of hostility, yet. The voice of Voxmaster Vigdis Suri Otta of the Toliman dynasty was long resounded in the expanse, bringing hope and trumpeting the arrival of the merciful rogue trader. Known for her wisdom and acute understanding of ship systems, over her long life she taught many generations of future Voxmaster from the Toliman dynasty. Her body was built into the bridge itself, and in times of need, her voice flowed through the Vox, dispelling delusions and despair. After years of dedicated service, Master Helmsman Raver was granted, despite his objection, the privilege to rest. The wise servants of the Omnissiah implanted an augment into his brain that restored his ability to sleep. Soon afterward, something unprecedented happened aboard the ship. The Master Helmsman overslept and missed the start of his watch, but his temper did not become much more agreeable from then on. Many years later, High Factotum Januaris Dunrock sought permission to retire. He said that age had softened his heart and that more worthy, young and assertive successor should take his position. There was no shortage of candidates under all that fat. Dunrock had a sentimental heart. He spared nothing for the orphans of those who had died serving the rogue trader. The children were given an excellent education and were eager to serve the von Valancius dynasty. Urban Drivestem cared more about preserving the influence of his line than the well-being of the protectorate. His blind ambition lost him his governor's seat and the respect of his family. Within a generation, one of the largest houses of the Dragones turned into an obscure family of petty aristocrats. Thoriana Gaprak missed the moment when her family, which had previously functioned well, like a well-oiled machine, started to fall apart. Racked by infighting among her distant relatives, many blamed Thoriana for the Kiavagama disaster. Soon the Gaprak family splintered into warring factions and spent centuries locked in violent struggle, only occasionally punctured by futile attempts to reunite the house. Mercurius Sourback was loyal to the rogue trader to the last, despite all the rumors on the contrary. Finding little affection among his subjects or family, he stayed true to himself, remaining a forthright, severe and pious person. Mercurius strived to ensure that every soul in his charge felt justifiable dread before both him and the God Emperor. Members of House Viserion served the dynasty faithfully and loyally, amassing more and more power. A century later, they had finally gained the respect enjoyed by other noble houses. Yet, power and luxury can dull any blade. The now pampered and idle aristocrats were scarcely recognizable as the descendants of the formidable Seneschal Viserion. Clementia Viserion, granddaughter of Elbard and the Chancellor of Dragones, executed her duties irreproachably, and even found time to school the younger generations of her family. She was an equal skilled mentor, chancellor, and a political operative. After a century of immaculate service, she surprised everyone by leaving her position and becoming the first mate on a trade ship. She would later admit, like a true Viserion, that she had always had a passion for ships and void-fearing. Branches of House Gaprak and Viserion became intertwined for a time after the marriage of Astartia and Vincent. To the great sadness of the couple and the great amusement of the spiteful Dragones nobility, their marriage produced no children. Just like her ancestors, Astartia Viserion Gaprak dedicated her life to service, crushed by the events that shook the stability of his house and his inability to provide an heir. Vincent lived in his wife's shadow. When his time came, he passed away without notice. The retribution of the Nocturne of Oblivion promised that the rogue trader arrived when relentless Aldari Avengers swept down on the von Valancius protectorate. In their wake, several Harlequin troops performed the monstrous and mesmerizingly bloody melody of coals fading in the night that bathed Janus in the sorrow and fury of the playwright in a horned mask. Damn you. After months of searching, Dragones wardens found the remains of Archelias Calander in the lower levels of the hive. Drukari artifacts and records discovered beside him. indicate that the agent of the Inquisition had been compromised and was working for the Xenos. The savage deeds that Gorday Skatov witnessed on Footfall traumatized him forever. His architectural genius was scattered. Only the rare collection of true connoisseurs held his work, written in a shaky hand. Footfall, the ultimate void station and mortuary. Adelia Belardo, the granddaughter of the pirate Jerry Candence Belardo, grew up to be the quick-witted and energetic captain. Since her guardian, who went simply by the name Chaplain, knew only faith, slaughter and void-fearing, he advised her to invest her inheritance in a void ship. Her trade clipper, the Snake, traveled to all settled worlds of the Expanse, and to many uncharted ones as well. In all the time that Adelia Belardo was captain, her ship never once fired on a civilian vessel. Having completed his last journey with the Lord Captain, Abelard Viserion, with the gracious permission of the rogue trader, left his post as seneschal and took over the helm of his large family. House Viserion rose above his rivals and was never again the target of persecution. Even after their esteemed patriarch died decades later in his bed surrounded by his grieving loved ones. Abelard's shining memory was blighted only by rumors of a creeping madness in the twilight of his life. Many said they had seen the esteemed seneschal taking to someone unseen, in a voice filled with unusual tenderness and sorrow. After the victory of Epitaph, Argenta left the rogue trader, and insatiable flame burned brighter and brighter in her soul, hungry for vengeance. And so the sister embarked on her own personal crusade. At first she hunted and exterminated remaining followers of the Final Dawn. Then she pursued those who had abetted them, and then anyone who she saw a hint of heresy. Even when she directed her wrath against entire cities, no power could stop Argenta. Clad in her sacred armor, she left a trail of fire and blood across the expanse. A trail that ended on Silas Prime. No one knows why the sister returned for a third time to the planet where she found her relic, but after descending to its surface, she mysteriously vanished. Rumors say that Argenta was lured there under false pretenses by her former allies. It may have been even been Svinto von Valancium himself, unwilling to kill her off or tolerate raging desire to cleanse the expanse of heresy. No one knows the truth, but many gave a sign of relief after her disappearance. J. Haydari basked in the rogue trader's light for many years, trying to make the most of such illustrious patronage. Alas, her appetites were insatiable, and 2 decades later she brazenly attempted a coup. It was a failure, and she found herself on the executioner's block. Before the end, she bestowed one of her famous smiles on the thronging rabble in farewell. So, we executed my girlfriend? Why? And why did she make a coup? Maybe I'm pissed about it, I don't know. Henriks von Klaus, the former interrogator of the Ordo Xenos, took the mantle of Lord Inquisitor. After his mentor's death, receiving both the Inquisitor's Rosette and duty to defend the sector from the enemies of humanity, Van Claux became the new warden of the Coronus Expanse. The Inquisitor became known as one who showed lenience. The Inquisitor became known as the one who showed leniency toward the small vices, and who was prone to using questionable methods. Decades later, Van Claux's own students branded him a dangerous radical, someone ready to use the instruments of chaos to achieve his ends. Before they could hand their mentor over to the tribunal, the Inquisitor disappeared without a trace among the distant stars at the edges of the expanse. So what? He became a heretic, or did he just run away? When the Lady Navigator's service came to an end, Cassia left the rogue trader and returned to House Ocelio's embrace. It was rumored that a new Novator would soon take the throne, and the house would be reborn after years of silence. Alas, the inauguration did not come to pass. As the discord within the whole house flared up and turned into a fratrical war, Lady Cassia died at its outset, taking the lives of many loyalists and renegades with her. The other Navigator houses made effort to scatter the remains of the once great House Ocelio, and to absorb what little was left of it. So we played with her a little bit in the beginning, so I don't know if that impacts the outcome of the end, but I don't know. Sad end. Tortured by the mysteries of his origin, betrayal, and the legacy of the Archmagus Amarnath, Pascal could not find peace. After several years, he was found dead in the ship's text chapel, strangled by his own mecha dendrites. Whether scrap code was deliberately planted in his mind, or he simply went mad, no one knows. Okay, suicide. Abel Hanuman did not long outlive his tech comrade. He withered away in his cell, passing seemingly without cause, simply willing his vital functions to cease. So he just... they can do that? Just end their own vital functions? Ireliat Lanaveos lost faith in her kin, who had followed the blind Farseer like obedient cattle. She accompanied the rogue trader for a time. But her time among the monkey only made her feel more alone, revealing to her that humans were as bereft of strong spirit and will as the children of Azurian. She disappeared and reappeared again in the Expanse many years later as the leader of a fleet of Eldari crossers, fearsome in battle and well versed in the tactics of the Imperium. Such was the echo of the deeds of the rogue trader of House von Valancius, deeds that transformed the Coronus Expanse and prepared it for the events even darker and more violent. But those are the events of a different story. This one has come to an end. So it's a really good game, I would say. Worth the money. I had fun playing it. A tough read. I think the reading is the hardest part. I don't know, even if you're a native English speaker, you should be having issues here as well. Because It's just so many big words. Like, I can't even pronounce them. I know the word when I read it, but I can't pronounce it. And sometimes the words feel made up. Like, is this a real world? Is it a real word? Is it? But still, it's like they mashed like 3 to 5 games into one game. That's how much energy they put into this one. So definitely worth a buy. And that is the end of Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader.